Shaykh Kamal, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How's everything going?
100%, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Glad to have you in Atlanta, Georgia. How's everything going here?
It is my pleasure to be in Atlanta, Georgia, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. How are you finding Atlanta?
I always enjoy Atlanta, alhamdulillah. The people, no, I don't know much about the city,
We'll take you some places
Yeah.
next time you're here.
Inshallah. I love that.
So Shaykh, you're a well-known Daee and Khatib, Imam, traveling the US for lectures, halaqat, durus. Take me back to the beginning, the start of your journey with ilm, the family dynamic growing up, what your childhood was like, early influences, and then what really set you off on that path of Islamic knowledge.
So I'll tell you, when I was in high school, like I had friends that knew very specifically in good detail what they wanted to do with their life. Like, so this guy would say, I want to become this type of engineer. And this guy would say, I want to work for Toyota and I want to produce this mechanical part. And I would always think, like, how do they know that? I have no idea what I want to do. And obviously now looking back, I understand why that was the case. So, and this is like, I'll try to, pretend I've got some wisdom to lay on your audience, right? But people always ask me, many times I'll meet people in their 30s and they'll tell me things like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And they feel like a failure even though they have a good job, they just got married, they just had their first child, but they somehow still feel like a failure. And that's due to, I'm kind of going off on a little tangent here, but one of the most damaging things that happened in the Islamic speaking world was Muslim speakers started to listen to those self-help guys, what's that big guy? He looks like the great Kali. What's his name? I don't know if you know who the great Kali is. It's some wrestler, but there's this speaker who looks like Robin something, man. The guy who's always giving the self-help stuff.
I don't know, man.
You guys, Robin something, the guy who does self-help. Tony Robbins, thank you very much. So people start listening to Tony Robbins, then they start to Islamicize that material. And should I stop?
I think they're worshiping in the church next door.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, blasting the
Are the mics picking that up?
No.
Nah, khalas, then it's all right.
You gotta get back to
We'll just go bust in and give him some da'wah and stuff. Huh?
Dawah workshop?
Yeah. So a lot of times people say, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I always tell them, just keep doing and you'll figure it out. Sometimes, if Allah lets you know too soon what you're going to be doing, you'll start doing it too soon and you'll ruin it for yourself. You know what I mean by that? Like the biggest mufti in the land, if he found out that he's going to be the biggest mufti in the land at age 8, he's going to start giving fatwa and he's going to ruin the possibility of becoming a mufti. Never panic. Anyways, the point is that it was a series of things that got me into speaking, and I was forced into speaking. My personal opinion, I still prefer that I still think that's the best way to get into speaking. One of my pet peeves is like young guys who try to grab the mic and want to force themselves as the khatib, and people would call me, please let me give the Jum'ah khutbah. I'm like, what? Like, we try so hard to get out of the Jum'ah khutbah. I try so hard to not be the khatib. And you're begging to become the khatib? Like, you just want to speak so badly? Well, one time the guy badly wanted to be a khatib, and he never gave a khutbah ever in our school. And he was like, please call me in the morning. In the end, I was like, look, level with me. What's going on? He said, well, the girl I want to marry is going to be in the audience today. So this guy's going to tell us, ittaqullah, to show off to this girl. Anyways, the point is that when I first started, first khutbah I gave, I was like forced. I had a friend of mine, Jazakallah khair, and sometimes there's benefit in forcing people to do things. And he's like, you have to give this khutbah, prepare this and that. And so I was forced into this. Once you grab a microphone one time, especially with shortage of speakers and stuff, suddenly you're doing every other possible lecture. And you kind of push yourself and force yourself to fit that position. But so I wasn't planning on, becoming a speaker or traveling the country or anything like that. But I was interested from the early times. Like, I was interested in the kind of stuff that Ahmad Didat rahimahullah, Shaykh Ahmad Didat was doing, as far as giving da'wah to non-Muslims and quoting their scripture and everything. And I remember I was in Sudan at the time, and I was like, where do I get an English Bible here so I can start to memorize this stuff and learn and stuff? And there was a family, Christian family, they were Filipino, and they're like, yeah, we'll give you a Bible. So I'm with them in the house as they're looking for this Bible, and they've got like this huge drawer of the oldest shoes. These shoes were mangled and dusty, and they're like looking for the Bible there. I'm like, your holy book might be under those shoes? Like, can you ever imagine going to a Muslim family and they're like, oh, we've got a mushaf here somewhere, and they're digging under old shoes? It would never happen, right? So I got it, and I had all the short booklets of Shaykh Ahmad Didat, rahimahullah, and I was reading them, and I had like a color-coded one. Like every prophecy about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in red. Everything where Jesus admits he's not God was in green, and stuff like that. And then khalas, we're coming to the US, to the East Coast, to Washington, D.C. I said, this is going to be great. Like, I'm going to have intellectual discussions with people. We're going to talk and discuss all this stuff. And then I come and like nobody knows what I'm talking about. So I was young, right? So I spend time explaining the book I'm going to use to wreck your argument. Give them a dars first on what the Bible is, and then use it to, like, that's not practical. It's not working. Anyways, there was an MSA. They needed a khatib. This was in Virginia, just a small college. And one of my friends, a very good man, still my good friend, and he was telling me, you have to give a khutbah, you have to do this, you have to do that. And he was always introduced me to people. Like, this guy's very good at interfaith stuff, and nobody knew me or anything. So you give the first khutbah, then you give the first dars, and then we had a first Islamic radio station, a full-time Islamic radio station in DC, and I was like director of English programming. And but I mean, I'm skipping a lot of stuff, but what I'm just trying to say is that I wasn't planning for, I didn't plan this, and I wasn't like, give me a microphone, let me try, let me give a lecture, let me give the khutbah. I was kind of forced into it, and so I wasn't seeking it. And it doesn't matter whether or not you're forced into it. What I'm trying to say to people is, don't seek it like that. It's just not nice, and it's not honorable, and it's not dignified. You're just trying to speak and be heard. You truly have something that of benefit. And when I lived in Virginia, there were a lot of mashayikh, a lot of scholars and du'at and shuyukh, and there was no need for me to speak. I was never trying to grab the microphone and speak, But okay, fine. You want to know about So I'll tell you something. I was probably 17, 16, and I was praying 5 times a day. And I thought, if you pray 5 times a day, that's it. You will jump rope into Jannah. Khalas. Didn't know much of what's going on. You pray, you're going to skip rope into Jannah. And then every Friday I would go to my aunt's house, and there was a masjid near their house where there was a popular sheikh. He was a Syrian blind sheikh. He was, if you want to know, the teacher of Mahr al-Ma'aqli, So I started, and he was an excellent khatib, like superb khatib. Like, his khutab were so good that we used to refer to his khutab like as landmarks or for the calendar. Like, so, I haven't seen this brother in a long time. Where have you been? He's like, yeah, I went to such and such city. When did you go? He's like, it's after that khutbah. Like, that khutbah, he gave one khutbah, was so powerful, we use it as a date, like before the khutbah and after the khutbah. It was so strong. So I remember the first time I went to that masjid, he gave the khutbah, and it was abasa wa tawalla. And then when he sat down, between the 2 khutbahs, he was crying. And the audience, people were crying, like they were bawling. And I was like, why are people crying? There must be something serious that I don't know about. And from that moment, I started to take classes with him. And I had a schedule. At some point, there would be like a class every single day of the week, But then, of course, you also have to go to school and other things. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always blessed us with having just good, clean teachers, you know what I mean? I don't want to give too many clues, but I used to live in a place where there were so many, I don't know if this is good for podcasting. Our teachers were like very good. They didn't play games or tricks or anything. And then there were some imams that were just, I was more inspired by the bad imams than the good imams. Like, you know how like sometimes something turns you off so much that you say, I don't ever want to be like that, right? So more so than the guy who's righteous and like, I want to be like this righteous guy, you know? So, so there was a lot of that. I don't want to give too many hints, you know? Anyways.
Were you born in the U.S.?
No, I was born in Sudan.
Sudan. So then what brought you to the U.S. to begin with?
Yeah, so my father, rahimahullah, was a diplomat, and we did not grow up in Sudan. So I was born in Sudan, but then I went to kindergarten in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and then I went to first grade in Islamabad. I stayed there for about 5 years, and then I went to Czechoslovakia and stayed there for a bit, and then I went from there, went to Sudan for a little bit, and then went to Zaire, went to high school there, and then finished high school in Sudan, and then came straight to the U.S. So when I came to the U.S., I was, still a young man, but if you live around the world like that, you want your education to be consistent, and so you're not going to find a Muslim school everywhere you go in the world, but you will find an international school / American school anywhere. So we always went and studied at American schools. But American schools overseas, first of all, they're not public schools, they're private. And the other thing is that, so meaning, I have very, very, very low opinion of American public schools, like insanely low opinion. So I don't want to get started on that. But all the garbage you see in American public schools, you don't see that. And you don't see that with American kids who are sons of diplomats and missionaries living overseas. Like, we didn't know anybody who had used any drugs ever in all these years. Like, we didn't have anyone who did drugs. We didn't have people who smoked. We didn't have people who dated. We didn't know any of that stuff. So it was like a clean private school in that sense. Where was I going with that? I'm like, there's so many things I'm trying to put together here. But basically, so you asked me if I grew up in Sudan or so we didn't really grow up there. But I came to the U.S. and when I came to the U.S., I was with a crowd in Sudan prior to coming to the U.S. and that basically pants were haram, and you have to wear the thobe. So I spent a year and a half wearing thobes. Like, I'd go to the gym in a thobe. This was in Sudan. Go to the gym in a thobe, but never wear pants and stuff like that. And so when I came to the U.S., I wasn't I guess lost in that sense, and then got guided here in America. So I already came attempting to be religious, but. I believe it was from the grace of Allah that we initially moved to Virginia. They had a branch of Imam Muhammad bin Saud University. There was a branch in Virginia, and there was American Open University there, and all the big shuyukh there, Sheikh Salah Sawi, Sheikh Ja'far Idris, Sheikh Abdul Aziz Al-Fawzan, and a whole bunch of people that were there. And we studied with them. We had classes with them in their homes. We had classes with them, at the institute, and benefited a lot from them. They were clean people. That's the most important thing for me, because I'm at the point where if someone memorized a lot of material, I'm not impressed if his conduct is not good and all the other things are not good, because anyone can memorize material. But they were clean. Like, there were no games, there were no tricks. We didn't try to do these little underhanded things and undercut the other group or sabotage their events. A lot of that happens, unfortunately. So one of the things in da'wah work, you have to be clean and expect dirt. People will do crazy things in da'wah. Make sure you stay clean. Don't retaliate. Don't respond in like manner, Okay, let me test you with something. I got a test for you. Yeah, I got a test for you.
I'm the host. I don't get tested.
Yeah, but this will be beneficial, inshallah, okay? If you don't like it, edit it later. But look at this. This is about, working as a da'wah organization, especially if there's another organization in your same locality or vicinity and they're doing kind of similar work. Do you encourage them to do work because They're working for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. Like ultimately, we don't care if we do the work. We care that the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is progressing and moving forward, right? So if the other group does better work than you should not feel any jealousy or any anger. You should say, Alhamdulillah, someone is doing good work. Someone is calling people to Allah. Someone is teaching children Islam. It should make you happy if you're sincere. Now, if you're not sincere, you're upset because how come our group didn't do it? Their group is doing all the work. So, you work for one of those dirty organizations, okay? And there's a clean organization across the street. They do good work, and they're having a huge fundraiser. They're inviting this big speaker. He's going to draw crowds. They're going to have all the seats filled, but they're having it at this hotel. So they're going to pay however tens of thousands for the ballroom, the food, and all that stuff. And the food is going to be halal and all that. Now you are sitting with your buddies at this dirty organization, you're conniving, you're conspiring, and try to find a way. You want to find a way to destroy that event and make it a failure. So, what's the best way to do that? Like, you want to ruin their event. What's the best way to do it?
I wouldn't know. I only work for clean organizations, you know?
Man, that's how you do it. Good job. So, I always ask this question to audiences, and one people are like, "Oh, call that speaker and tell him not to come, that they're bad people and stuff like that." And I was like, "Okay, it could work, but he could also call and clarify." And actually, they tried to do that, and they called and clarified, and he's like, "Yeah, no, we're coming, and it's good." He spoke to them and made sure that they were clean. Okay, fine. But what's another way to do it?
You have to have an event the same day.
Have an event the same day.
Yeah.
Invite another big speaker, maybe.
Exactly.
And just try to offset take away from their audience. Okay, that's not bad. How about something dirtier than that?
Well, is that like a 6 out of 10?
Yeah, it could be a 6, because then it's going to cost you tens of thousands. But you could also make the money from fundraising, possibly.
It's a sacrifice worth making to...
But they'll also, now you're being directly opposing them. They're going to say, why would you invite someone the same date we advertised
So
before?
it's supposed to be low-key.
Yeah, it's supposed to be low-key.
Know about it.
Yes, sir. That's how you do evil stuff. Yeah, and does Iblis come and tell you, I'm Iblis? Or he comes like your own thought, right? So,
I don't know. You tell
all right,
me.
here's how it's done. First of all, congratulations. Because if you would have said the answer immediately, I would be like, watch out for this guy. You should not know the dirty answer right away. So what you do is you send 3 or 4 of your guys into their fundraiser. Let's say their goal is to reach $300,000. You get it. You get it? So, your first guy says, I'll give 100. Allahu Akbar, takbir. May Allah bless you and your family. Takbir. Then the next guy says, I'll give 80. All right? Then the next guy says, I'll give 60. So now they're trying to reach 300. So in their mind, they're like around 250, 240 right now. So they just have to raise the other 60. And the pledged amount is not always what you receive, right? You get a percentage, a lower percentage. So now he's like just working on the other, whatever left over, $40,000, $50,000. And then he gets about 40, 45. So he thinks, khalas, we got about 295 out of the 300. And so when the fundraiser's over, they call and the guy's like, oh, I just had an emergency at work. I'm sorry, but I can't give the 100. They call the next guy, oh, I'm so sorry, I can't give the 80. They call the next guy, I'm sorry, I can't give the 60. So now what did they get? And they got probably about 40,000, maybe 38,000 from the pledged amounts. But they had to pay the speaker, they had to pay the event, the caterers, the food, the halal meat. So they really didn't make anything. And that's how you do it, nice and evil. The problem with this story is that it's a true story. The other problem with this story is that it's the same story has been repeated in other cities. Like I know personally of another city where the same event, the same thing happened, took place. So that will work. Can be super clean and sometimes can be super dirty. Your job is to make sure you're on the clean side. That's it.
How do you keep yourself on the clean side on a personal level?
So, it sounds, the way you ask the question sounds like you're every day struggling to not go to the dirty side. It's just once you work clean, that's how you work. Well, khalas, that's the end of the story. I mean, I don't want to complicate it. It's just like that. You just used to doing clean work. You don't ever think of doing dirty things or making this event fail. And khalas, then. It's just how you operate. Just like if I were to ask you that question, you'd probably give the same answer. How do you keep you don't know dirty work anyways, right? Or do you? You don't. So you've been working like that. So you don't wake up every morning and like, "Ah, I gotta stay clean." It's just how you work, right?
Personally, what was the transition of kind of just being a khatib here and there, studying the Bible and trying to do da'wah wherever you can, to being a full kind of member of the da'wah force, becoming a full-time student of knowledge, and for this to become not just a hobby, but your full-time gig?
It started off where, so like I'm really interested in da'wah and I'm trying a lot, and like actively going out and standing in front of a store. I belong to a Muslim, I asked permission. I'm standing there giving da'wah and everything, but it's like not working in the sense that I'm not being effective in getting results in shahadas. So in the class, I always differentiate between being an effective da'iyah and a successful da'iyah. So effective da'iyah, you can affect change, speak to people, they take the shahada. But you don't call them, you don't know what happens to them after that. And most likely, they turn back to whatever they were because there's no follow-up, there's nothing. A successful da'iyah builds them up until they're members of the community, right? Anyways, then I was introduced to some brothers, and these brothers were like always giving da'wah. And every time this brother, I see him, oh yeah, yesterday we got 6 shahadas. Day before yesterday we got 5 shahadas. We got 3 shahadas today. I'm like, how? We just woke up. Like, these guys were just getting shahadas like this. So I started to, like, I guess, go out with them. Shadow them might be accurate, but I would go out with them and give da'wah. And I watched how they did it because they tried. I gave them opportunities to teach how to give da'wah. We invited them to university, teach us how to give da'wah. And like the lecture poster would say how to give da'wah. Then the brother would come and say, you know what? It's all about the hellfire. Then he gives a full lecture, 1 hour about the hellfire. I'm like, what do I say when I meet someone? Explain that part to me. Remember, this was in a time when there were no da'wah workshops. There were no YouTube du'at fighting with everybody. So, like, okay, like how are we? But I learned from them already, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna put it in a way that just from A to Z that explains to people how it's done. So, the first ever version of the Dawah workshop, I actually taught it in the Saturday school to my students. I didn't have an audience or anything, so I taught it to my students in the Saturday school. They understood it very well. I think we spent 2 weeks explaining it and everything, and then one of them goes, does this stuff actually work? Can I bring someone in? And so he invites a friend from high school next weekend, and he takes a shahada that weekend. So at least for the kids, it's like, okay, it does work. It's not just all theory. And then there was like a process, like a lot of trial and error, and you learn through experience. And at first we were doing the whole 70s da'wah thing, these aggressive pamphlets with bad color, and we're just passing that stuff out, and it's like we're quoting science in the Quran and just stuff that people don't become Muslim because the Quran mentions plate tectonics, and they don't. People think that. Anyways, so the da'wah workshop. So then the second time I gave the da'wah workshop was at university, where I had just become chaplain of that university. And their history was that they had a da'wah table for like 3 years and they got 2 shahadas. So I gave the da'wah workshop, in the middle, maybe somewhere beginning to middle of the semester, and in that semester, 17 people became Muslim. So they're realizing that if we go from 2 people in 3 years to 17 people in a semester, so this stuff must work. And so our university became popular, like with the da'wah table. Like we had some du'at, and our best du'at were all sisters. Those sisters were on fire. They were like, mashallah, they were amazing, mashallah. They were crazy, man. They would set up a da'wah table at the other university down the road, get some shahadas, pack it up, come over here, get more shahadas. They were working. In the meantime, brothers would come and like, brother, these sisters, they're giving da'wah to men. I'm like, I got an idea. How about you give da'wah? Oh, brother, I'm busy. So like, you can't help in this situation, but you can just tell me what's wrong in the situation. Anyways, so then somebody called their cousin at some university and said, I have this guy who did this workshop and people start becoming Muslim left and right. So then I'm invited to this other university. I go there, I do the workshop. Then I was invited to another university and I do the workshop. I'm like in my 20s at this point. And then I spent the next 7 years, sometimes every single weekend, sometimes every other weekend, I'm traveling somewhere and giving the Dawah workshop, and it was all free. Yeah, and back then we didn't have all this stuff, and so it was all free. Like I would be traveling all over the place, and never asked for money for it. I remember in my 7 years, I once got $300 from the University of Manitoba, and the $300 haunted me for like 5 years. I felt so bad for taking that money, but it was also really to pay for the rental car that I got to go there. I drove there. Things were different, and you'd also get treated like dirt. You know those studies about when you pay for something versus when it's free. I had so many horror stories of people just would, because you're coming for free, some young dude, and I wasn't demanding anything, and didn't have coffee demands or anything, so I was just treated like dirt a lot of the times. There's this one masjid I went to. Dawah workshop starts at 10, so I go there at 9:30. There's not a living thing in the masjid. I'm just alone there, like nothing is set up, nothing. So finally, the imam shows up. So I told him, like, the thing is starting in like 20 minutes or 15 minutes, and there's nothing set up and everything. He's like, oh, he goes into his office, he opens his drawer, he hands me a key. He's like, this is the key to the storage room. You'll find tables and chairs there. Start setting up. So I was, now if this happens, khalas, I'm too old for that. I'm like, start setting up. I went, took the key, I start setting up tables and chairs and everything. And then people start showing up to the event, and I have to set up this whole hall, you're right, and I'm setting it up and putting the chairs, and then people are starting to get kind of rude with me. This is unprofessional. You're supposed to be ready. This is not. We're here. You're still setting up, and I'm like, listen, I'm not from here. It was supposed to be set up, and I'm doing the setup, and they're even helping me. And I'm doing it myself, and now more people are showing up, and this guy's getting upset. So I went to the imams, like, can you send me some people to help me out? Because it's late, people are gathering, and they're getting upset. So I was like, okay. He comes with me. I thought he's going to, like, assign some people to help me. He grabs the microphone. Who's upset? Who's upset? So you know what that made me look like? It looks like the guy got upset, and I went and complained to the imam, hey, there's a guy yelling at me. So now he comes. Anyways, it was everything, and I was not even employed at the time. So you drive from Virginia all the way to these eastern states. You pay a lot of tolls and gas, and when you're unemployed and you pay like $32 in tolls one way, and you're gonna pay another $32 going back, and you pay the gas going and coming. So they're going to reimburse me for the gas and tolls. That's it. Like, I'm not making any money from this. And I was so embarrassed because I'm from Sudan. And Sudan, we don't like to talk about money. And it's very embarrassing. So I'm like so embarrassed. And I pull out the receipts and the tolls. And I need to get reimbursed for both ways, right? I don't have any money. And the guy is like, these are the gas receipts. He's like, okay. And then I was like, and these are the tolls. The tolls are nothing. And he gives me like the gas money. Even that was embarrassing for me. And there are many stories, but basically, there were good times though. Now, if you ask me if I've been to Arkansas, for example, I honestly don't know. Like, I would not know where I was going. I was just traveling. I wouldn't even see I would just see the lecture hall, the hotel room, and the airport. That's all. We didn't go fishing or deep sea diving or anything like that. And it was a different world, but it was nice. There was something pure about it,
You mentioned the branch in Virginia of Jamiatul Imam. Is that something that you attended, or was just something there that you kind of took classes at here and there, or is that kind of where your journey of your ilm?
No, it wasn't. So initially it was, because I was in school full time, right? And the institute was always there. And in a way, also, we took it for granted. It was like, this institute been there for years. That's where we pray our Taraweeh and our Jum'ah. And it's like our masjid, basically, even though it's not a masjid. But there's like so much ilm there and mashayikh, and they're, again, clean people, right? So then at one point, I was like, I have to put my studies on hold and study the Sharia.
You were in undergrad at the time?
Yeah. And so we're at this point it's just classes with mashayikh, and they were like heavy hitting mashayikh, right? But and then I spoke to Sheikh Ja'far Idris Hafidhahullah, and I said that I want to put my studies on hold in order to get a degree here, and he was against it. I couldn't believe that he was, because think, okay, yeah, study. He's like, yeah, the way the world works now, you need to get your degree, okay? And he said, finish your degree and then study. And there was a lot of barakah in his opinion, because it shut down. 9/11 happened, and the State Department canceled all the mashayikh's visas, and so they didn't officially say close this place down. But when you cancel all the visas and everything, you're closing the place down. So I would have now been in limbo here and here. So the Sheikh's da'wah, his advice was filled with barakah. But after that, I started attending and actually applied for it, and then I started just attending classes, and aqidah classes and stuff like that. But we always had classes going on at some. We studied fiqh. We studied always in even Shaykh Abdul Aziz Fawzan. We had a class, aqidah class with him in his home. Besides, I took classes with him at the school, and people would be nervous during his class. Like he would start off the class, just randomly call someone and ask them, what's the evidence for this. Go over the material from last week. And he had to make sure he called everybody. So one time I went into his class, I was too busy and I did not review. And he just started off. You, what's this? You, what's this? And there was this big guy ahead of me. And I was just right behind this big guy. I was invisible. This big guy I was just right behind him like this. Then the big guy would shift to the right side. Boom, I shift to the right side. This sheikh could not see, didn't lay an eye on me until we went for Maghrib prayer. And we came back. I'm walking into the classroom with him. When he saw me, he was like, Kamal, were you with us since the beginning? I said, yes. He said, I didn't see you. I said, I was there. He said, then we have to ask you a question, inshallah. We have to ask you a question, inshallah. But he forgot. He didn't ask me anything. But everybody would be studying all morning. Oh, today's Shaykh al-Fawzan's class. So he's going to ask questions and we're not going to be embarrassed and stuff. And then the sisters were in another floor through the intercom. So some folks had their wives in the class. They didn't want to look bad in front of the wife, right? So they would study hard.
You were in undergrad. You finished up undergrad in Virginia at the time. Are you doing all of those classes while you were a student? Or is this something, not the classes, are you doing the dawah workshops while you were a student at the university?
Yeah, I did everything while I was a student. My GPA was at the university was 3.9, right? And then I got so into the da'wah stuff, it dropped to 2.8, and then it came up again. So it's funny because I was doing the running around and my GPA was 3.9 something, and I got a letter and I made the dean's list basically. My mother was upset that I was on the dean's list. Most mothers would be like, oh, I'm so proud of you on the dean's list. She's like, what? You're on the dean's list? You just running around. What kind of school is this? Because you shouldn't be on the dean's list. You just running around. How did you make the dean's list? You just running around all the time and doing all this other stuff. But how people say I don't have time and stuff. We all have time. We don't manage our time well. Like the guy who says he's busy and he has time, he'll go have kebab with his friends. They'll sit for 3 hours talking. I'm telling you. These people just don't know where their time goes. People used to tell me, oh, I don't have any time. And I would come and ask them to come help at the da'wah table. No, I don't have time. I'm busy. And these days I have no time. And then I keep talking to them. It's like, yeah, so I was watching Lord of the Rings yesterday. Isn't that a 3-hour long movie? So you do have some time. You just don't know how to manage it. I never say I'm busy to people. I never.
What were you studying during undergrad?
So I studied. Okay, that's an interesting story in itself, because I was studying business management. If you know me, I'm the least business-minded person you'll ever meet in your life, right? I'm not even I should never be in the world of business. These business people, they have a look in their eyes. Because I owned a restaurant at one point, right? And I used to go to buy like supplies for the restaurant. So I go to this place and all these business owners are there, and I would look at their eyes and say, "What am I doing with this crowd? Look at their eyes. They've got this look. I can't describe it." So I'm like, this is not for me. Anyways, I want to get out of business management, even though I'd done like 3 years or so of that. And I was gonna go into philosophy, mostly inspired by Sheikh Ja'far Idris. So I was like, let me do philosophy. Sheikh Ja'far, Hafidhullah, when he has a PhD in philosophy, right? And he was like one of the last living philosophers of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Like, he's amazing, right? And when he was doing his dissertation, his professor was a British guy, and he wrote a 60-page introduction to his book. You write a book basically. He wrote a 60-page introduction to his book that was so impressive that his professor offered him his PhD just from the introduction. He said, I refused it. I'm like, no. I insisted on finishing the book. He said, I suffered so much, I wish I took the... Anyways, so that kind of inspired me. So maybe because he was so insightful and stuff, and then that's when I started working for the first full-time Islamic radio station. And I was director of English programming, and I had my own show. And so this is a time where I'm doing street da'wah a lot, very involved in da'wah. And this was one of the transitional moment for me where I started to realize that da'wah has to move away from one person, one pamphlet. When are we going to switch to using mass media, mass communication? So, because when I turned on, when I hit the mic button, 3,000 to 5,000 people were listening to me at any time. Now, if you went to a masjid and 3,000 to 5,000 people came for your lecture, you said, this is the most successful da'wah event ever. But every day I hit that mic button, I had 3,000 to 5,000 listeners. I had a show called Understanding Islam, and there was another show called Sharia New where we host mashayikh and people call in and ask them their questions and their fatwas, and it was like a great thing for the community. So it was at that moment, being in the street da'wah and then being in the radio station that made me realize that da'wah needs to transition. So I switched and I studied communications. And communications is da'wah. And it's not a hyperbole, it's not exaggeration. It is da'wah. Every course we studied, it was completely pouring into da'wah. So we studied interpersonal communication, intercultural communication, PR. PR is da'wah, Sales is da'wah, but there wasn't sales. But like everything is da'wah if you're in da'wah mode. So every class I took, every semester, I was like, this is da'wah. This is da'wah. We studied the theory behind radio and television, and we studied about the effects of movies on people and children. And so I'm like, this is perfect. Like, I couldn't have chosen a better secular career study here. So, and also there's no math. That's the other good part. I rant and ramble so much about communications. One of my friends, I was telling him about he went and got a degree in communications. So it's so much, it's like really, really beneficial. So, and then with the concentration in media production and stuff, so... Which also comes in handy, like lighting and setting up camera angles and crossing the axis and all the other stuff. Beneficial. That's why I told you I would have loved to work on the Umar series. It would have been awesome.
Daee, at the time, a lot of classes at the Jamiatul Imam branch here in Virginia. Then, around that time, you join probably the most influential organization in the West when it comes to Islam this century, AlMaghrib Institute. How did that come about?
Just to clarify, not a lot of classes at the Institute, but we used to frequent it. Anyways, so AlMaghrib comes, they had some, you had to have a degree from Medina and stuff like that, and I didn't have that. So they were not interested in me for the longest time. And I was just doing my thing, and alongside AlMaghrib, I knew, the instructors, they knew of me, and then I don't know what happened, but they had some change in policies, and they considered me. So they had this process where you would be invited to Montreal and you give like a mini or a short version of your class Because actually, there was a copy of Al-Maghrib called Al-Kawthar. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah? So Al-Kawthar hired me. I guess they had lower standards. Al-Kawthar was like, come along. So I joined Al-Kawthar, and I was teaching the Dawah class for them. It was called Dawah Power. I like that. It was called Dawah Power. Nice name. I taught Dawah Power in South Africa. I taught it in Australia. So I like went to South Africa a couple of times, different cities, Durban, where Shaykh Ahmed Didat rahimahullah was from. I got a tour of his office, and a lot of funny things. And they make you hold his Abdullah Yusuf Ali Quran and take a picture like in front of his desk and stuff. I was kind of forced into that. And just for the record, don't read Abdul Yusuf Ali translation. Everybody knows that by now. The point is, so I did Dawah Power for a while, and then I resigned from Al-Kawthar. And then Al-Maghrib came, at around that same time Al-Maghrib came calling, and they said, look, you're not hired yet. Come to Montreal, do like a 3 or 4 hour version of any part of the class. And then we have our top students, and then they will evaluate every session and send you feedback, and then you incorporate that feedback, and then we'll see if it's gonna work or not. Anyways, so I did a version of the Da'wah workshop, and there was a non-Muslim. Someone brought a non-Muslim to that class, and during the break, the non-Muslim took shahada. So I knew, I was like, I got this. This one's in the bag, because you're trying to hire me to see if I could teach da'wah, and then a guy takes shahada in that little sample class. So it worked out. I think Al-Maghrib had been in business for like 7-8 years at that time. So I was one of the later instructors.
This is what, 2007, 2010-ish?
I don't know. Maybe 2000. I don't know, man. I even forget. I was living in Calgary at the time. So I can't even remember if that was 2009. Maybe it was 9. I can't remember. Yeah, I should know this, but I need my wife here. I was like, well, what year was that? And she tells me, so I don't know. But anyways, then I started teaching with Al-Maghrib, and then I got hate, because when in my years of da'wah, you're just giving da'wah and everybody's happy. No matter what group you belong to, like, you're happy when people are taking shahada. So I was like never used to getting attacked or insulted or anything online, and because it's just da'wah. And then the minute I joined Al-Maghrib, and suddenly refutational videos start popping up, and articles with little lies and twisting words, and what is going on here? But my nature is like, I don't bother at all with what are you going to do? Khalas, there's nothing to do, so you just keep working, right?
15 years around at AlMaghrib Institute brings us to current day. Other than AlMaghrib instructor, what are you up to these days?
So these days I'm at Clear Lake Islamic Center, and I think it was like 18 years of travel, and I got tired of it. There's a point where I got so tired of traveling. I don't want to hear airport announcements. I don't want to hear the captain. I don't want to see the safety demo. I'm done with traveling. It's a lot of time, and when my son was born and he got older, the first day of the week that he learned was Monday, because I usually return on Monday. So I like all weekend, is today Monday? Is today Monday? Like, he wants his dad back, right? So I'm like, I want to stop traveling. Clear Lake Islamic Center needed an imam, and most importantly, they didn't have a board. I'm like, I'm in. I'm in. There's no board. I'm in. If you get an old boat with a hole in it and call it, Masjid al-Salam, and if there's no board, I'll become imam of that boat. You understand? If you find me a tattered tent with gasoline all over it that might catch on fire at any moment, and you tell me this is a new masjid we're building here, but there is no board, I'll become imam of that tent and make sujood in the gasoline. Am I clear enough, or should I give another example?
I think one more, just to clarify.
If there is an empty space in the lion's den at the local zoo, okay, and you tell me this is a designated prayer area, but there is no board, I'll become imam of that masjid. And you know what the lion will have to do? I'll just tell him, stow. And he better lie. Because, I'm the lion, man. You don't know. That's my...
Sheikh, inshallah, to wind down the podcast, wanted to have a quick fire round with you.
I don't think I gave you anything beneficial today. Like, all the stuff you're looking for, like, which I'm just like...
Just casual, I don't know what. There was the Jami'atul Imam branch here. You took classes with many of the top mashayikh of that manhaj, that line, and then, you're taking classes there.
Virginia was loaded with shuyukh, man. Virginia had barakah. Like, we didn't know what a horrible place Virginia was because there was so much khair, ilm, and barakah. There's mashayikh coming, you would pick up a watermelon, the sheikh will pop his head out. Yani, there was mashayikh everywhere, right? With all due respect. But when they all left, two calamities happened. Number one, the guys taking notes became the shuyukh. One of the saddest moments in my life is that masjid, that center where all these big mashayikh used to give amazing khutab. When they left, they asked me to give the khutbah. So I thought when I climbed the minbar, everyone's going to look at me with pity, like, oh, this miskeen, the mashayikh are gone, so like he has to fill in the space. But I remember how people looked at me. They looked at me like I was the sheikh. And I remember feeling, man, Islam is doomed. If you should know how to look at me, you should look at me like, okay, we don't have anybody else. Yeah, Jazakallah khair, poor guy's trying to, fill the gaps. But they looked at me like I was the sheikh. And I was like, oh man. So the non-shuyukh became shuyukh all of a sudden, giving fatwas and trying to lead the community. Anyways, it was a disaster. So I cut you off. Tfaddal.
All good. Every single introduction of yours includes that your nickname is... What do you think I'm going to say?
I hope it's not that black belt.
The black belt of Dawah.
Oh, man. Yeah, so I don't even know who came up with that, but I have nothing to do with that, and I had nothing to do with that. And I think it was part of the marketing thing. They said they called me the black belt of Dawah. And because the whole thing started with a Dawah workshop, And like I said, back then there wasn't a single one. There was one guy who had a Dawah workshop, and it had, let's just say, bad reviews. Like, I know people who attended it and said, like, his first rule was you have to be an African American to give da'wah. You have to be African American. And so that didn't sit well with, like, half the room. There's like two African American guys in the room, and you're telling them if you're Arab, you're Daee, please just get out. That title just came. And it's not even humble. I don't think it's even a good title. And if I were to give myself a title, I would say like the 3rd degree black belt of Dawah, something more humbling, not like black belt.
From every single country that you've lived in, which one is your favorite?
Ah.
Let's do lived in and visited, since you've traveled a lot as well.
So from the places I visited that I love a lot, I love Malaysia very much. I've been to Malaysia 10 times.
10?
Yes.
On the other side of the world?
Yeah. Long flights. And I just love the Malaysian people with their good manners, and I love Southeast Asia. I just love Southeast Asia. If I had a choice, I would be just born there. Like the fruits, the weather. I have energy there. I really love Southeast Asia. So I really love Malaysia, and from the places where I lived, they wouldn't be great anymore. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed my 5 years in Islamabad. Islamabad is clean. 9 o'clock, everyone's asleep. It's the best city. It was during the Daee al-Haq times. It was safe. It was great. But we were kids, so I didn't get to know the politics or the problems. Czechoslovakia was great because Czechoslovakia at the time was under communism. So it was insanely safe, and it was insanely cheap. Even Russia, when I visited Russia, and I've been to a number of companies that don't exist anymore, like Czechoslovakia, which is now Czech Republic over here, and East Germany, which was a completely different place than West Germany back then. And we crossed the wall and went into West Germany. Zaire, which is now DRC. But Czechoslovakia, it was safe, it was cheap. And then it's interesting how the minute communism fell, the next day, they were Czech guys with swastikas and skinheads, shaved heads. They just came out of nowhere. It was safe yesterday with birds and butterflies, and then next day there's skinheads attacking foreigners, and things change, obviously. So that was nice. But of course, I wouldn't go back. It's a different world, and I'm a different person. Um, I'm just these days. I'm in love with Egypt, man. I love Egypt so much. I love Egyptian people. They're just. It's just nice to be in Egypt. So
AlMaghrib brass comes to you. They say you have been selected to teach a class and you need to go on a road trip. And you're teaching a class with one of your instructors and you get to pick which one you go on. Which one you go with. Which AlMaghrib instructor are you picking?
easily, Sheikh Saad Taslim. I don't even have to think much about that. Sheikh Saad Taslim. I love him. He's my guy. He's down to earth. He's real. And I'm not saying everyone. So don't take my praise of him as an indirect insult to others. Like other people are real also. But Sheikh Saad, he doesn't fake it as far as I see and I can tell. He does not fake it. He's honest. He doesn't do fake sheikh stuff in front of me. Like we're ourselves in front of each other. I love every minute with him. And I consider him like a dear friend. And I knew him before he went to Medina. He used to go around telling this fun fact. So when I had the pizza restaurant in Virginia, he used to be one of the delivery drivers, and people find that so weird. Like, you know,
What year is this?
I don't know the year. I might have to ask my wife, man.
Early 2000s?
This was early 2000s. So he would come all the way from Maryland and deliver pizza and stuff, and he was waiting on his Medina, waiting to go to Medina. So instead of just doing nothing, he was doing the. But I really love him, and like I said, he doesn't act like he does some very honest things that I appreciate. Like for example, he was telling me how in the lecture he would say, one of my teachers said this, and Shaykh Ibn Qayyim said that, and then someone told him, like, why are you attributing the quote to someone else? Just make it yours. Make it look like it's your statement. And he wouldn't do that, and I like that. That's honest. That's something I would do. Like, I'm not gonna take someone else's contemplation and make it look like, the other day I was having tea and thinking to myself about this verse, and then I throw in someone else's contemplation. This kind of honesty I appreciate. So we would have a great time, and we would get into big arguments. I mean, if we went on a road trip, me and him, I'm already telling you, we would be arguing most of the time about Marvel versus DC. So the only thing bad about him is that he has very poor taste, and he thinks DC Comics is good and better than Marvel, actually. So, and he thinks Batman is superb, and like Batman is
Just a guy with a mask.
yeah, and I told him this. Look, my problem with Batman is the villains that he's fighting. A rookie cop can arrest them. End of story. Tell me if I'm not speaking the truth. Yani, a rookie cop can find the Riddler, and put your hands up, handcuff him, throw in the back of the squad car, and lock him up. You don't need not even powers nor belts. I could arrest the Riddler. I can arrest the Joker and whoop him like crazy. All right? And the Penguin, I will kick him from here to the precinct. I don't need any powers for that. My problem is that's who he's fighting all the time. But you would need powers to fight the Rhino or...
Who's your favorite Marvel superhero?
Spider-Man, 100%. And Spider-Man, there's a difference. Because of my age, I grew up reading the 80s Spider-Man comic book. That guy was 16, but he was a man. Whereas the newer 2000, whatever, the weird drawing, and he was just a weird kid. So, when you're 16 in the 2000s, it's not like when you're 16 in the 70s and 80s. Like, we thought we were reading about a man because he was like a man. He was very mature and very responsible, and I also love how he was not appreciated, and he would capture all these bad guys, but the papers are putting out bad stuff about him still, and he's still working hard. He's had some ikhlas, So I always liked Spider-Man. So when I say Spider-Man, I'm talking old school Spider-Man. I'm not talking about this new kid. I cannot, not that stuff.
Sheikh, what is your closing advice for all of the students of knowledge out there?
I have maybe that should have been the episode. We should have just been like, what's the advice for students of knowledge? Because
it wouldn't have been authentic then.
Well, because my advice isn't just on the process of attaining knowledge. I don't know many people or many good students of knowledge that have a problem with that. They've got their roadmap to knowledge kind of lined out, right? But it's the things, it's the da'wah world, it's the speaking world, it's the conference world that you need to be aware of certain things, um, and and the advice, if I give it, it's just gonna sound like oversimplified, but it's the crux of everything. It's the so so maybe the advice I would give is to keep it is to keep sincere, and to do things first for the religion of Allah Azza wa Jal, and then for everything else. And they don't have to be extreme like I am. Yani one of the reasons I'm not active on social media, like I tried having a Facebook page and I would post and it was just a headache. And it's like, people not really want to learn here. They're just insanely rude and belligerent, and like, if whatever you say, sometimes I'll cook a dish and I'll just put the recipe up on my Facebook, and then someone starts critiquing where the fish came from. Like, I bet you did not even know about this fish, but you Googled it to find something wrong with it. So that's like but what happens is, when you're active on social media, I do TikTok reminders, and you do, those videos, and you do, what's the other thing? There's Instagram and all that stuff. Those who know, they know that you do that to really promote yourself, right? And I just had I mean, that's really, there's a part of it that you're sharing wisdoms and stuff, and there's a part of it like, it's really, you're promoting yourself. And now when you have an online presence, when you hold an event, 200 people will show up. So I know someone's going to try to explain this to me, but I understand it. So if I promote myself, 200 people will show up to my event, and that's better than 25 people, and I'm getting a message out to 180 more people. So I understand that. I don't need an explanation. But my thing is, my advice is to find the fine line between the two. A lot of times people do things to promote themselves, or they have to be in the spotlight. I've been in speakers' rooms where people are like flexing on each other on who's got more prime time lectures, yani, who's got the keynote speech, who has the early 9 a.m. speech. And when you have, there's one speaker, his speech is always voted the best, even if he does the 9 in the morning speech. If he does the keynote, if he does the 9 in the morning, if he does the before dhuhr, people always vote. Because, I'm not going to say his name because I'm praising him, because he works on his ikhlas. It's all about ikhlas. And it's not about doing little stunts to become popular. I had points in my life where I could have done these little stunts before people were doing anything, and before speakers even got on YouTube. And I knew that if I did it, I would get popular. But I also knew that I would be doing it to get popular. I'm not doing it for Islam to move forward. I'm not saying everything I do is for Islam to move forward. No, sometimes I go eat sushi. Not everything, every waking minute I'm trying to move the ummah forward. And I'm not saying that. But I personally just have a hatred of kind of promoting myself and pushing myself forward. And I don't like that. If it happens organically, it happens. If it doesn't happen organically, and only 20 people come to my lecture, if those 20 people actually benefit and go, in the days when I used to go and do the da'wah workshop, sometimes I would travel to the middle of the country or across the country, and people don't know who I am. There'll be 20 people, and I'll give them the class just like there were 200 people. And then these people go and they send me emails later. It's kind of like your Masjid Farouk thing, the barakah, and I would see the stuff that they would do. Then we put it online. This guy heard it, brought 200 people to Islam. Young guy, 21 years old. He started a Saturday street da'wah table that is running until today, over 20 some years. Until this day, every Saturday. Allah knows how many shahadas they got. And they used to retain like 95% of them, which is amazing. So if you just work and you focus on the barakah, and you're not really too concerned about how popular you become and all that stuff, that's good. That's clean. Keep it clean. That's my advice in one word. Keep it clean.
Inshallah. Shaykh, Jazakallahu khairan for coming on. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and all of your efforts, put barakah in all of your projects and endeavors. Until next time, we have a crowd forming for your next lecture. That's in a few
Oh.
minutes, inshallah.
MashaAllah. Let's do it then.
Until next time. Jazakallahu khairan.
Barakallah fik, Habib.
Assalamu alaikum wa
Alaykum
rahmatullah.
salam.